I was reading a lot of books from Eric von Däniken, and I can imagine that's true what he wrote in his books, and so I can imagine this, that we had help from aliens, but I don't know, I'm not sure.
We only know so much in this world, and what we do know is so limited, and every day we're finding more that require us to ask more questions and bigger questions and think bigger. It's possible that something from another planet came, some other life form, intelligent life form came and did this.
I mean, who knows? It could be, because the origins of many things are lost in antiquity. All we have are remnants and shreds of evidence to suggest what might have happened.
Someone told me that it was proven that aliens had a part in this. I wouldn't be that surprised. Why not?
To be honest, ancient astronaut theory has never cropped up in a discussion with my colleagues. I don't care how many pints into it we've been, we have never discussed ancient astronaut theory in any credible way whatsoever.
One of the good things about ancient astronaut theory is that it makes us think. It brings out the, what about this? What about that? We need explanations for all these things. And I think that one of the main reasons why mainstream archaeologists get a real knee-jerk reaction to the ancient astronaut theory is that it's very disturbing to them, because they don't have all the answers.
Now, some of them may believe that life could exist in the universe, but their bottom line is, show me the proof. Show it to me for real. I want to see the spaceship. I want to see something concrete, not just a few pictures that everybody can interpret as being this or that.
Far-fetched, ridiculous, insane. Ancient aliens visiting Earth centuries ago, building monuments, influencing scripture. But what if it all turned out to be true? What would happen if just one piece of evidence turned up, one stone, one key, that proved that von Däniken had been right all along? And if he is right, what does that suggest about our future? If alien visitors had come here before, would they come again?
Even I think the idea of aliens and them visiting us is very exciting and interesting, and it would be really cool if that happened. So it gets people excited about the question, maybe they start thinking about it, and like many things, they might ultimately come to thinking about the physics or the archaeology and get involved in the scientific process. So that can be a positive side effect of these theories and their popularization.
If it turns out that the ancient astronaut theory is wrong, I will be the first one to say, okay, no problem. But so far, certain pieces of evidence have not been debunked.
If the ancient alien astronaut theory is somehow proven to be true, this would be a huge boon to my work and to the search for other planets like Earth with life on them. Because if alien astronauts have visited Earth in the distant past, it means they're pretty nearby. And it means that we don't have to look very far to find planets like Earth with signs of life on them.
But evidence has to be treated with a great deal of caution, because it has different meanings. I'm not sure what the reaction of the population will be.
It will strengthen the general concept that our history of religions in the world needs to be looked at again with more respect and also with more wonder, meaning, what are we supposed to make of this now, and what are we supposed to be doing with this now?
If science detects life on Mars, if science detects a UFO, then we need to take what science is saying to us and begin to rethink about ourselves on Earth in light of the possibility of new life. Does that change our understanding of God? It should, if anything, broaden it. If we do find alien life, we should rejoice.
And honestly, the way things are going on this planet right now, I would welcome a visitation every once in a while, a little help.
There is no doubt that my hypothesis will be accepted by the mainstream. It may be a question of just 5 or 10 years. Sooner or later, we will have contact with someone out there, and then the thinking, they will return. And if you don't listen to Erich von Däniken, you will have the shock of the gods.
Mega machines cutting through solid rock. The transportation of multi-ton stone blocks. Modern aircraft carrying millions of people each day around the world. And space shuttles sending humans to the stars.
And liftoff of Endeavour.
But are these examples of modern technology? Or is there evidence that these incredible achievements existed on Earth thousands of years ago?
And you begin to have to ask yourself, are we missing part of the story?
Could ancient man have possessed knowledge far beyond that of our own century? And if so, where did it come from?
I think that people in ancient times were visited by beings coming not from this earth, and they gave us scientific technologies.
It becomes ever more apparent that the possible answer of have aliens visited in the past could be a potential yes.
Millions of people around the world believe we have been visited in the past by extraterrestrial beings. What if it were true? Did ancient aliens really help to shape our history? And if so, what if there were clues left behind, sometimes hiding in plain sight? What if we could find the evidence? Throughout the ancient Sanskrit epics of India, there are numerous descriptions of vimanas, or mythical flying machines. One of these accounts even dates back over 5,000 years.
In the Bhagavad Purana, which is an ancient Sanskrit history, there is a description of a spacecraft that was piloted by a king named Shalva. It's described that it was made of metal. It was described that it sometimes appeared to be in two places at once. It was described as having a motion similar to that of a butterfly. And these descriptions are consistent with what people who observe UFOs today report.
In other Sanskrit texts, such as the Mahabharata, the Rig Veda, and the Ramayana, there can be found descriptions of Vimana measuring as wide as 100 feet, and often equipped with the capabilities of modern aircraft. One Vimana produced a shaft of light, which when focused on a target, consumed it with its power.
It's like a Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon movie from the 30s. They read like the wildest science fiction. People are flying around in airships called Vimanas, blasting each other and having aerial fights, destroying entire cities.
And the crazy thing is that all of those stories are totally accepted in the modern society of India.
I don't think we can say that these descriptions are simply imagination, because even though they were written thousands of years ago, they match what many people today report in terms of observing the actions of UFOs.
Were they just mythological tales that they're making up, fantasy? Or these physical, real events, and they're trying to describe them as the best that they could? That seems to make more sense to me.
I gotta tell you this, I would be out of a job in India, because there, if I were to talk about ancient aliens and ancient gods, they would say, okay, so what else is new?
When backing up their claims of extraterrestrial visitation, ancient alien theorists draw upon two kinds of examples. There's the evidence you can read, such as that found in ancient texts. And then there's the evidence you can actually see. Among the earliest types of physical specimens, numerous cave and rock drawings and stone sculptures found all over the globe.
You know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Absolutely. When you see pictures depicted, for example, on a cave in Italy that show two astronauts with helmets on, I don't know, what the heck could it be? What could it be?
Each of these ancient illustrations or statues depict figures dressed in strange attire for the times and sporting unusual headgear. But could they really be representations of alien astronauts, visitors from other worlds who touched down upon the Earth thousands of years ago?
All over the world, we have statues and sculptures and paintings and depictions of these extraterrestrial beings. Even in the United States, at Sago Canyon, Utah, we have petroglyphs of very weird-looking creatures that have antennae on their heads, helmets, and halfway around the world, in Kimberley, Australia, for example, we have the exact same depictions of these helmeted beings with a halo around their heads. And the question I have is, what did our ancestors see that compelled them to put this on their cave walls? On yet another continent, in Guatemala City, we have a sculpture that looks eerily reminiscent of a modern-day astronaut. I mean, that thing is wearing a helmet. There's some type of a mouthpiece, and on his chest are some type of controls or a breathing apparatus. How is this possible? 1,500 years ago. And in Colombia, there were thousands of tomb artifacts that look like modern-day airplanes. It has fixed wings, it has a fuselage, and it has an upright tail fin, which is not intrinsic to nature, but it is intrinsic to modern-day aerodynamics. Did our ancestors see something similar flying in the air? Absolutely. Another compelling artifact that was found was at the Istanbul Museum, where you have this headless spaceman sitting inside some type of a space vehicle. You can see his hands, and you can see tubing that go to some sort of devices. He's wearing a suit. His legs are crammed in there. I mean, even to the untrained eye, this looks very aerodynamic, and it looks something that, came from outer space.
These people witnessed something. They were told something, and they tried to depict it the best way they could with the kind of technology they had at the time, and that was simple tools and simple artwork.
Many of these ancient civilizations were widely separated in space and time. They weren't in communication with each other, but still they have the same kinds of accounts. I think it's because they all experienced these things, and they all have the idea that we're part of a cosmic hierarchy of beings. So I think we can't explain things away so easily.
But for Eric von Daniken and other proponents of his ancient astronaut theories, perhaps the most significant illustration can be found in Mexico. The Mayan archaeological site of Palenque had been abandoned for centuries before it was stumbled upon by Spanish explorers.
So to get to the top of this, suddenly, here are the Great Pyramids of Palenque.
Here, deep within a secret tomb, under one of the age-old temples, lies the 7-ton sarcophagus of Palenque's 7th century ruler, Pakal the Great.
Lord Pakal apparently died here at Palenque. He was apparently this mysterious Mayan leader. He was a giant, 7 or 8 feet tall, actually. And then they built this pyramid around his tomb. The Mayans literally worshipped him as some kind of a god.
King Pakal's sarcophagus is adorned with a carving that has become a famous example of classic Mayan art. Most believe the illustration shows Pakal descending into the Mayan underworld. But ancient astronaut theorists interpret the carving a vastly different way.
On this slab, an incredible chiseling. You see a man, and he's sitting in a sort of capsule. He has some sort of mask on his nose, and you see his upper hand, he's manipulating some controls. From the lower hand, he's turning something on. The heel of his left foot is on a kind of pedal, and outside of the capsule, you see a linking flag. This is incredible. This is absolutely a proof for extraterrestrials.
3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
If we look at the similarities of what our astronauts look like when they are in a rocket ship or in the space shuttle and have gear attached to them, there are similarities being shown. So one just has to ask the question of, is this just an artifact symbolically showing something, or are they trying to depict, with their own limited understanding of the time, what was taking place?
Was Lord Pakal just some Mayan king that everyone liked? Was he some important visitor from some far-off land? Or was he even possibly some extraterrestrial from another planet?
Although most scientists and archaeologists discredit von Daniken's interpretation of the Palenque carvings, visitors to the site are often treated to stories and offered souvenirs that support his claim.
This is Eric von Daniken's theory, the chariots of the gods, no? You see, Pakal's supposed to be driving the rocket, holding the controls, the pedals, the engine, and the fire of the rocket. This will be the cabin, no? And this is the oxygen.
Mainstream archaeologists claim that it's really a depiction of Lord Pakal and his journey to the underworld. He's going under the ground rather than out into space. Both are interesting theories, and either could be right in my mind.
In recent years, Pakal's tomb has been closed to tourists and casual visitors. Although the sarcophagus is off limits, ancient astronaut theorists can still find a wealth of evidence in the carvings along the walls of Palenque.
This is very similar to what's on the lid of Lord Pakal, of his tomb. The way he's got his left hand right here in an odd position, and his wrist, also some kind of rocket exhaust or something is coming out of him.
But Lord Pakal may not have been the only alien who once walked the Palenque ruins.
The Mayans had such an advanced calendar and mathematical system. Why were they so obsessed with the stars? One of the most advanced of any ancient cultures. And yet, the Mayans just vanished around 500 AD. We don't know where they went. And one explanation is that the Mayans were some kind of extraterrestrials, and they literally left our planet.
But ancient cave drawings and stone carvings aren't the only types of illustrations that fascinate ancient alien theorists. In 1929, historians discovered a map which had been painted onto a piece of gazelle hide. They traced the document back to a 16th century Turkish admiral named Piri Reis. But in stark contrast to other maps dating back to that time, the map depicts landmasses that were still, as yet, unexplored.
It shows the coast of Antarctica as it exists under the current ice cover. Now that's really pretty amazing, because it would tend to indicate that the map was made at a time when Antarctica was ice-free, which would be many millions of years ago.
The map also accurately charts the coasts of Europe and North Africa. But it's the illustration of northern Antarctica that truly astonishes ancient astronaut theorists, because this region wouldn't even be discovered for another 300 years.
We have to remember that Antarctica is covered by at least a mile thick ice. We didn't have ground-penetrating radar until 1958, so for a map to exist in 1531 accurately showing the topography is pretty interesting.
When cartographers superimposed the Piri Reis map over a modern map of the world, they were amazed to discover that the ancient chart was fantastically accurate in the most minute of details. But how could the creators of a centuries-old map have known of mountains or rivers that had yet to be discovered?
In 1531, I really don't know of anyone who was flying above the surface of the Earth high enough to map topography, and how would they see underneath the ice?
Their maps were so accurate. I mean, we know that they didn't go to Antarctica and explore it, but yet they were able to draw these maps of it.
But if ancient aliens possessed the technology to travel the universe, would the only evidence of their journey be in the form of a few carvings or a mysterious map? Wouldn't there also be signs of a highly advanced technology? Signs that might be too large to overlook.
You mean to tell me that people of that time period did this by hand? I don't think so.
When it comes to searching for evidence of ancient aliens, Erich von Däniken literally leaves no stones unturned.
I have collected for more than 40 years information, and there are two sorts of evidences to support my hypothesis. The one source is literature. This might be archaeological or mythological literature, and the other sort are practical objects. For example, the pyramids are linked to the gods who once descended from the sky to us earthlings.
Without a little interplanetary help, how else could early Egyptians have learned to stack the nearly 2.5 million limestone and granite blocks that create the Great Pyramid? How could prehistoric man move the immense boulders at Stonehenge? And how could ancient builders at Cusco fit stones so closely together that even a razor blade can't fit between them?
As you travel around the world trying to piece together this puzzle of the ancient world, there's not that much to really get a good grasp on, but what there is giant blocks of stone, huge articulated granite or basalt blocks in many cases. Sometimes they weigh 1,000 tons. And these things are the size of railway cars, and you find them in Peru and Bolivia and Mexico and ancient Egypt. You have to ask yourself, why and how could ancient people have dragged these railway car-sized blocks of stone, stacked them up together into these giant buildings?
Perhaps the most familiar and most mysterious megalithic structure in all the world is the Great Pyramid of Giza. The oldest and largest of Egypt's 3 Great Pyramids, this miracle of engineering is believed to have been constructed during a 20-year period, ending around 2560 BC. But to ancient alien theorists, those numbers just don't add up.
The Great Pyramid was not built in only 22 years, because logistically speaking, you would have to cut, transport, and put into place one stone every 9 seconds. And there are modern engineers who have come forward and said, we couldn't do this in 22 years either.
There are all kinds of theories on how the Great Pyramid of Giza was built. So many theories, you just sit back and shake your head. And that includes ET visitations, levitating the blocks with some kind of sound system, anti-gravity, thousands of workers pulling long ropes on a ramp that had to be almost 2 miles long to get it up to where it is. All I know is that they are so finely aligned and that the architecture is so precise that even modern people today, with great technology, would have a difficult time being that good. How, for example, in the inside of the pyramids and the tombs, could they build granite and marble areas that were just so perfect and so clean. You mean to tell me that people of that time period did this by hand? I don't think so.
The enormous size and weight of the stones, multiplied by the sheer number of them, makes one thing certain. The construction of the Great Pyramid remains one of the greatest marvels and mysteries of architectural engineering.
I don't want to discount human ingenuity, because I do believe that we do have the ability to do these things over a longer period of time, but the knowledge to build some of these monuments, there had to have been some type of intervention or some type of knowledge given to ancient man to carry out those instructions. They couldn't have just come up with it on their own.
In Egypt, there are old traditions saying the Great Pyramid was constructed by a pharaoh with the name of Saurit, and then they say Saurit is the same which the Hebrew community calls Enoch. Enoch is a prophet in the Old Testament. There are books of Enoch called the apocryphic texts. You make a connection with Enoch to these extraterrestrials. He clearly says he met these extraterrestrials. Now we have writings in the book of Enoch, and he gave the order to construct a building which cannot be destroyed by the thousands of years of the future.
And the ancient Egyptian texts speak that the pyramids were built by human beings with the assistance of the guardians of the sky, meaning the gods. And so we have proposed that the pyramids were built by human hands, but with the assistance of extraterrestrial technology.
As one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Great Pyramid remains not only an archaeological mystery, but a geographical marvel. In 1877, author and theologian Joseph Seiss demonstrated that the Great Pyramid resides at the intersection of the longest line of latitude and the longest line of longitude, the exact center of all the landmass in the world. Also, each of its 4 sides aligns almost precisely with the 4 points of the compass, though such an instrument wasn't even designed until thousands of years later. But is it just mere coincidence that pyramid construction, very similar to that practiced in ancient Egypt, was also evolving halfway around the world?
There are pyramids on remote Pacific islands, and in India, and in Mexico. So this is something that's all over the world. Archaeologists haven't really been able to explain why dissimilar cultures, separated by huge oceans, are building the same structures, and in many ways the same way.
Here in central Mexico stands an ancient city that dates back more than 2,000 years. Its name, Teotihuacan, literally means City of the Gods. And located at its center is the Pyramid of the Sun. Incredibly, this pyramid's perimeter is virtually the same as that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. A structural coincidence? Or could it be that both were inspired by the same designers?
A couple theories for that. Okay, one, maybe they were all taught the same thing by an extraterrestrial race. Two, there were ancient travelers from within this planet who went from one area to another over the thousands of past years. And then as some skeptics will say, hey, that's the greatest archaeological way to make it, so they just knew it. I don't think that's the case.
At Teotihuacan, here you have a giant pyramid of the sun and a giant pyramid of the moon. According to the legends, these things were built by gods who were giants at the end of one of the destructions of the world. Civilizations such as the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Hopi Indians of northern Arizona, they believe that the world has been destroyed 4 times in the past. one time by ice, once by fire, once by water. Each time, mankind rebuilds again. And Teotihuacan supposedly was built just at the beginning of one of these four worlds.
You may ask the question, why build these huge, huge structures? For what purpose? Well, in Egypt, for example, either the pharaohs had incredible egos and they wanted to outdo themselves, right? So they built these huge museums for themselves. Or it's also possible that these ancients wanted to leave behind something for us.
It is written in ancient Egyptian texts, the purpose why the pyramid was built was to store knowledge. 300 books which allegedly contained the knowledge of the universe, dictated by the guardians of the sky.
Of course, the pyramids aren't the only ancient monuments that continue to baffle scientists and archaeologists. There are literally hundreds of them, and they can be found in every corner of our world. In a remote area of the Pacific Ocean lies one of the most isolated yet inhabited locations in the world, Easter Island. Here, over 800 stone guardians called moai stand watch over the island's coastline. But are they primitive native carvings or eerie portraits of alien visitors from thousands of years ago?
Whatever they were for, they're made to last for thousands of years. They're built out of blocks of stone that weigh many, many tons. Not only are people building structures out of these huge megalithic blocks of stone, but this was going on around the world. And yet, supposedly, it's just primitive people doing this for no really good reason, it would seem.
Old, perhaps the oldest city in the world. And somehow, the sculptures at Tiwanaku were constructed in the same style and with the same enigmatic expressions as their distant cousins on Easter Island.